DeRae, are you ready for the most colorful episode of Cautious Coffee, or are we just going to Miami Beach right now?
I'm just ready for the most colorful episode of Cautious Coffee to date.
Let's do it. Roll the intro.
Boom.
Welcome to episode 8 of Cautious Coffee. My name's Austin Staton, joined alongside the co-host DeRae Crane, and we've got a really interesting episode today. We're going to talk cancel culture, what it means, why it matters, or doesn't matter. And we definitely want to encourage you to let us know what you think. And in order to do that, we encourage that you engage with us on our social media platforms and through our website. All of that is available, cautiouscoffee.com. If you want to check out some sweet merch like DeRae and I are rocking, check it out. Want some coffee? It's all on the website, so check it out. But
we're basically giving these things away.
Yeah, giving these away right now. But DeRae, cancel culture, what is it? Why does it matter? And why are we talking about it on episode 8 of the podcast?
Yeah, well, that's why we're here to kind of, explore cancel culture. And, 7 minutes ago, I was just thinking about, how, it's a knee-jerk reaction. And I started thinking about system 1 and 2 thinking. But, maybe we'll get into that a little later as I flesh that idea out. But in the meantime, I'd like to read an excerpt from a July 7, 2020 letter.
Do we want to get to that right now, or do we want to read what cancel culture is first?
No, I want to start with that.
Okay, all right, let's do it.
I want to start with that this letter appeared in the October edition of Harper's Magazine. It is now all too common to hear calls for swift and severe retribution in response to perceived transgressions of speech and thought. Institutional leaders, in a spirit of panicked damage control, are delivering hasty and disproportionate punishments instead of considered reforms. Editors are fired for running controversial pieces. Books are withdrawn for alleged inauthenticity. Get that word out. Journalists are barred from writing on certain topics. Professors are investigated for quoting works of literature in class. A researcher is fired for circulating a peer-reviewed academic study. And the heads of organizations are ousted for what are sometimes just clumsy mistakes. Going to ... that. The way to defeat bad ideas is by exposure, argument, and persuasion, not by trying to silence or wish them away. Now, I read that letter, that excerpt, and that, those people that were mentioned are just regular folks, just regular. They're not famous, right? They're not social media famous. They're just average Joes.
They're academics.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got some academics. They're not your A-list Hollywood celebrities that you're going to see on the cover of People magazine, but they're people that are well respected within the academic field. Like Noam Chomsky, Malcolm Gladwell,
right. The folks that read that letter, but the ones that I listed, right? Journalists or professional folks, managers, people that make decisions, hire and fire people. So what is this cancel culture? What's the definition? Is it in the dictionary yet?
I don't know if it's in the dictionary, but Wikipedia has a definition. So we're just going to go with the wiki entry, and we'll put it up on the screen right now if you're watching on YouTube. But cancel culture is a modern form of ostracism in which someone is thrust out of a social or professional circle. So it could be, your academics. That's where that comes in, whether it be online, on social media, or in person. So those subject to this ostracism are said to have, quote, been canceled. Mostly has negative connotations. And interestingly enough, the song Your Love Is Canceled back in 1981 is apparently where this cancellation term originated from. But you and I discussed this before we started recording. Cancel culture isn't something that's new. It's just been thrust into the spotlight the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Fair enough. It reminds me of something. I don't know if you can still say this and not get canceled, of being blacklisted or blackballed. I don't know what the appropriate way to say that is now. You get canceled, I guess. I'm unsure.
Is that a problem, that there were things that were acceptable no more than 2 to 3 years ago that are now unacceptable? Is that a problem, or should we evolve with time? And when we learn things, should we evolve? Because I think our thinking and life evolves, right? The more you study, the more you read, the more you talk with people, your thoughts can evolve. But
so that might be part of the problem. When I was talking about system 1 and 2 thinking, maybe there isn't a whole lot of thinking going on there, right? It's just an intuitive, I don't like how that made me feel, knee jerk.
But people are jumping to conclusions.
Reaction.
Right.
All right. And the human is a lazy thinker. Whatever to save bandwidth, and having to engage your system to way of thinking is laborious. So that might be something there. And I just thought of this in the last 15 minutes as we were discussing this here.
I think you're 100% right that people are lazy. And this is where this clickbait culture comes in, right? You see it on social media all the time.
Social media.
If there's a tweet out there that maybe has an inflammatory headline or news article that's maybe inflammatory, most people see it and they go to retweet it right away, right?
Right.
It's confirmation bias. It says exactly what they want it to say.
Steroids.
When people actually read the article, maybe it's not exactly what the headline says. Yeah. And I'm gonna use a recent example. So in the last week of May, The Hill, which is a publication based out of DC, they're kind of known for more clickbait headlines. They ran a headline story that ended up on Twitter, and it was talking about Chip and Joanna Gaines. And if you're not familiar with Chip and Joanna, they are based in Waco, Texas. They had the hit show on, I think it was HGTV. Now they have like their own network and, their whole conglomerate. I mean, it's a massive empire. The article in The Hill said Chip and Joanna donate to political candidates running against critical race theory. Mm-hmm. And so if you just see that headline or that tweet, you might jump to cancel them right away. And in fact, I clicked on the tweet and I read the comments and people were like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. I can't believe this. Need to cancel Chip and Jo. I'll never watch again. And again, most of the people saying that probably never watched them to begin with.
They probably don't read either.
But if you click on the article, do you know what the article is?
Tell me more.
Chip's sister is running for school board in Dallas, Texas, and he donated $1,000 to support her campaign.
Yeah.
Just $1,000 to support his own sister. And that was the headline, that he donated to a candidate that was running on an anti-critical race theory platform. So that might be her take, but he's supporting his sister financially on a local election. And that's the headline, to try to force that cancel culture.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that bothers me.
That is bothersome.
Just the clickbait headlines.
And if they had just read the article.
But people don't take that time.
But that's like, that kind of skews the power. You have this fastball that you're getting ready to use.
Are you talking baseball right now? I mean, these are references that I'm loving this, DeRae.
But you haven't done your homework.
Right.
You're the kid in class who hasn't done it.
Who read the Cliff Notes.
And you're the loudest one. That is so problematic.
But that's our culture right now.
It creates so much noise.
That's our country right now.
And you know what I remember? That is our culture. And the press is partly responsible for that, right? Because before social media, right, you got all your news from, newspapers,
New York Times,
and
WAPO,
and
the Chronicle,
the evening news. But now everyone's like a reporter,
and it's 24/7.
And it's 24/7
because of this.
Yep. And I remember, there were some issues. I just finished A Promised Land by Barack Obama, and he was, he went and had a conversation with the press about an issue, and they wanted to talk about like trivial things, and he wants to, use his time, energy, and effort to, deal with the financial crisis, the stuff that's going on in Libya. He's trying to get, society back rolling and up and going, but yet the media wants to spend time questioning him about stupid stuff. And, he's like, well, we're better than this, and I need to be focused. What is that? Why is that? And look where it's led us.
I think it's because sometimes media companies are driven by headlines. They're driven by ratings and not what the people need to hear, right? I think it's this dumbing down of American society. I mean, how many people read a book now? How many people read the news now and actually take time? I mean, I tell this to friends all the time. They might send me a tweet that is very, very misleading, something that they see on Twitter, and I'll ask them, like,
did you read it?
Did you read it? Did you see what the New York Times had to say about it? Or did you read both sides. And that's what I encourage people.
Cross-reference.
I encourage people. I don't care where you sit politically, whether you're on the left, whether you're on the right. Follow people on Twitter from both sides.
Yeah.
Hear what both sides are saying on the same issue, because in reality, I think people have a hard time separating opinionated journalism versus actual reporting in journalism, right? So the example I always give is Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity, right? Very polarizing people. There's a lot of assumptions out there that they're reporters. They're not. They're opinion columnists that happen to have a TV show. They're not reporters. And so people can say, oh, well, you know, they're fake news or pushing bad information. Yeah, that's true. They are. But they're not presenting the news. They're putting their spin on the news. And I think people need to they need to differentiate between that. And that's the problem now with social media and this clickbait culture is people are looking for content that confirms their own biases.
They fall for the narrative.
Exactly.
That they've been sold.
Exactly. So follow Fox, follow CNN, follow MSNBC, see how people are reporting it, and make your own decision.
Yeah, think critically about it. How about that?
Exactly. Take that extra step. But I think this goes back to the bigger picture. So we start cancel culture, right? I think we're kind of thinking of two separate things, right? So we're the angle that we've kind of hinted at so far is more on political and social issues. Should you be canceled from differing thoughts? I think we're going to get more into that to begin with, but there's also if someone has a bad tweet and posted online, should they be canceled? And I think we go back to really the first big one that was Twitter canceling somebody, and it's Justine Sacco. DeRae hadn't heard of her before we recorded this episode of the podcast, but if you're not familiar with Justine Sacco, she was a PR marketing person that lived in, I believe, New York, and she was traveling to South Africa to go visit her family. And she had a history of posting, like, I don't know, maybe she thought she was funny and trying to be, and maybe she thought she was funny. And so it was 2013. She posted when she was boarding a flight from London, heading down to Cape Town. She sent a tweet saying, "Going to Africa. Hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding. I'm white." Terrible, terrible tweet.
Yeah.
Terrible tweet. Tone deaf. There's so many different things out there. And she should have known better. If she's a PR marketing person, she should have known better. Well, she didn't have internet on her flight, and she had a small following on social media. A few hundred people followed her. It's not like she had 100,000 Twitter followers. But one of the people that followed her worked at like BuzzFeed or Gawker or some publication like that.
Gotcha.
He saw it, retweeted it, and then it went viral. And some of the hashtags trending on Twitter were, "Has Justine landed yet?" By the time she landed in South Africa, she was already canceled. She had already been fired, lost her job. Is that the right move? Or is that just the start of something that has brought us here 8 years later?
I don't know all the ins and outs of that situation because there could have been, if she's...
she had a history of like colorful tweets, we'll put it that way.
Yeah, but, whoever her employer was, kind of has the right to, especially if there's something.
It's an at-will state.
In a contract she signed, she just knew better, and she was, didn't think anyone was going to see it and it was going to be consequential. She was unlucky in that someone from BuzzFeed followed her and blew up, went viral.
I think it's interesting when you look at social media and people have retweet doesn't equal endorsement, or this is my personal opinion only, and it doesn't reflect the company that I work for. It does.
Yeah.
I don't care what little disclaimer you put on your social media. What you say ultimately does reflect your employer. It reflects on your family. It reflects on your friend base. This is something we told our student athletes back in 2007, 2008 when I was working in sports, and Twitter had just become a thing.
All right.
Think, then tweet. And I understand people make mistakes. What Justine Sacco did was stupid. And, she should have known better.
It's tasteless.
Tasteless. But did she deserve to lose her career? She probably didn't reflect well on the company. And the company was like, hey, we gotta cut ties. We can't be associated with this.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's okay. But now we've started to see, like, I agree with the Justine Sacco situation. And ultimately, I think she landed on her feet. She ended up getting like another
And she apologized.
role.
Right?
She apologized. Yeah. She understood the gravity of her consequences. But then we have some people that tweets resurface. You know, we look at sports, for example.
Yeah.
The NBA draft is coming up this summer. We see it during Major League Baseball draft or
Dig up all the
NFL draft. People will pull up tweets from these draft picks when they're 12, 13 years old and posting stupid stuff. Some of them are posting rap lyrics and people try to cancel them on social media.
Yes.
And I think it's one thing if you pull like a Justine Sacco and you get caught in the moment of saying something completely dumb versus when you're a kid, you're 13 years old and post something stupid. You don't know the consequences. You don't know the reach potentially that you have. Should those people be held to the same standard as someone like a Justine Sacco who was 30 years old and made this boneheaded decision
Right.
versus a 13-year-old or 14-year-old that has maybe grown up and experienced more in life?
Yeah. They definitely shouldn't be held to the same standard. You know, they're a child. Adult is different, right? I don't believe there's a right and wrong, right?
Right.
There are consequences, and it's as simple as that.
There are consequences for everything you do in life.
Exactly. So
This episode that we're recording could have consequences. Hopefully not.
and we understand that, but I think the what we fail to really receive is that we're all human. We all make mistakes, and you can't tell me that there hasn't been a time where you said something that you shouldn't have had to someone that you regretted, or you did something that you regretted doing, and were apologetic for doing it, and now you're going to be destroyed. We're mentioning the penal system, the justice system in this country, where people go and they pay their debt to society, they get out, and then they're, basically you're canceled. If you're a convicted felon. Thinking about my dad can't even get into Canada. He's a convicted felon. Went there for his honeymoon some years ago, and they turned him around at the border. That was something he had done 30 years prior.
He paid, according to the justice system.
Yeah.
He paid his debt to society, and he's still being discriminated against because of something that he did. And he literally paid the price.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think there's something much bigger here than what, cancel culture is. It's kind of a side effect of something bigger in our culture where, nope, I'm sorry, Austin. You don't get to be human like the rest of us. Okay.
Yeah.
I got to take you out.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this podcast right now and you've never made a mistake in your life, just go ahead and unsubscribe. We've all made mistakes. And sometimes we've said stuff that is stupid. We've said stuff that we regret. We've gotten in arguments that we shouldn't have been in, fights that we shouldn't have been in. We look back on it sometimes and we realize, hey, I was dumb. And sometimes we're lucky that it ends there. That it's not something that gets blown up larger. And I think when I look at something like when I look at social media behavior, I think we should give people the benefit of the doubt, right? Because we're supposed to be a society that encourages second chance and finding that next opportunity. And I think at the same time, if we were given a second opportunity, you've got to make the best of it, right? But I think if you screw up, 10, 15 years ago, and you actually learn from that mistake and you show that you have learned, that you've grown, give people a second shot, especially if there was, I told you the story before we started recording. I think it was Teen Vogue. They hired an editor this earlier this year in 2021. And she had sent some dumb stuff, I believe, on her Twitter account when she was probably in her teenage years. And when she first got into journalism, she owned up to it.
Yeah.
She said, look, she called herself out and was very open about it, apologized, said, this is how I've learned X, Y, Z. When she got the position as editor, those tweets resurfaced.
Yeah.
And she couldn't take the job.
Right.
She had to resign. I don't think that's right. When somebody has owned their mistakes and has a track record of proving themselves.
Well, that's that tells me or shows me why people are afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Who would want to own up to stuff if, you have an idea of what the consequences can be? I think also on another layer of that is the fact that, it's not a zero-sum game.
Right.
If I disagree with you, Austin, it's okay. I see something differently than the way you see it. It's okay. Like, I don't have to take you out now because we don't agree.
That's the problem with our culture now. I don't know where this started. Like, I think back to, I know it didn't start in 2016, leading up to the 2016 election, but that's where I really feel that it got exposed. Mm-hmm. Is that if I disagreed with you on something, we couldn't talk.
Weren't there witch hunts at some point?
Yeah, same thing. Like in 1600s, you had Salem witch trials.
If you couldn't float, or what was it? And then
yeah, if you floated or something, you're a witch, and they would put like weights on people.
Like, oh, okay, you're gonna kill this person.
But that's the problem with our culture, right?
Like, it's the same.
It's just, if I disagree with somebody, I can't have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And I think there's a different time and a place where if you just see somebody posting like terrible content on social media and you just want to unfollow them, that's great. That's fine. Like, but ask yourself, why do I disagree with this person? Can we have a conversation? Maybe come to a mutual understanding on something, or at least understand why you and I disagree.
Or what's the goal?
What's your perspective?
What is our goal here, right? Us debating, right? Debating is zero sum, right? It's win or lose. Dialogue is driving us towards the goal. So that's why I will opt out of debate unless it's going to get me to my goal, and it's unlikely because I think that wherever we're going, when we identify a goal, we're going to get there together.
Right.
So that's why I'll opt into the dialogue, opt out of debate. I'm not going to debate with you, especially if you didn't do your homework. Right? So those people that didn't read the actual articles, or there are people that, conspiracy theorists or whatever it is where, they're not fully informed about a situation. And it could be, they want to cancel someone and they didn't read the full article, or they didn't listen to both sides before they make a decision. They didn't use their brain, their system 2 thinking, because it was too hard and difficult. And they outsourced whatever thoughts and beliefs they have from something they heard from a friend, a relative.
We let biases sometimes creep in and impact our decision-making process. I mean, I look to really the biggest headline in the world right now, COVID-19, and this whole theory that it potentially came out of a lab.
Yeah.
Like, this is something that people were talking about in February and March 2020, but the person who was talking about it was Donald Trump. And Donald Trump has been known to be a conspiracy theorist from time to time. And so scientists said, well, no, this obviously cannot be true. And then in May 2021, Dr. Fauci, who has been the one like trust the science, investigate, he admitted to Congress that, hey, this could be a real possibility, that maybe COVID didn't originate in nature, and maybe it did originate in a lab. Nobody knows at this point. But the problem is the vehicle, the person who was delivering that information at first. It was Donald Trump. Maybe he's not the most trustworthy. Maybe he likes to ruffle feathers. Fact check, accurate. But
or just be okay with it being unknown.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be so overconfident in your certainty.
Exactly.
Just say, I don't know. You know what? I'm not sure about that exactly. So I'm just going to hold comment.
But I like your point about not engaging in debate, but engaging in dialogue.
Yeah.
Because that's important. That's where you actually learn and grow.
Focused on the goal.
If I can learn about your background and your experiences, it might not necessarily change my overall opinion on something, but it can maybe reshape my understanding on certain topics. And I think that's what we need. We need to be able to have those dialogues without fear of retribution.
Yeah. We do that in relationships, don't we? If we get into an argument, or
I've never gotten in an argument in a relationship, DeRae. I don't know what you're talking about.
We want to win. We want to win the argument.
We always want to try to get the last word.
Instead of, well, what's the goal in a relationship? Right?
It's to grow together.
To grow together, to be happy, to start a family. So what is winning that argument? Is that going to get you there?
Probably not.
Probably not. You're going to do some damage, and it'll be irreversible.
Yeah. I mentioned this on the last episode about this book that I read, and I shared this quote with you the other day. So it's Malcolm Gladwell and the Bomber Mafia, but it's early on in the book, and it says, revolutions are birthed in conversation, argument, validation, proximity, and the look in your listener's eyes that tells you you're on to something. I think that hits the nail on the head. Like, if you actually want to create change, you have to be able to converse with somebody.
Yeah.
You can't just force people into believing something. You've got to actually take the time, take the effort to have a conversation, to hear what somebody's thinking. Why do they think it? Ask yourself those questions.
Well, you also have to be willing to be open-minded to understand how someone got to why they think a certain way.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's context and nuance behind it. Like you have 30 some odd years of life and experiences I may not necessarily be able to relate to. Yeah. But the more that we spend time with one another, I can see how, you are the way that you are, and you can see why I am the way that I am. And I have no problem with that. Right. That's what it's about. It's about having that variety of people and opinions around you, and being okay with someone believing the exact opposite of what you believe.
So
do a better job of communicating so people can comprehend.
On that note, why are people afraid to have conversations now?
People don't even talk to their neighbors. They'll live next to someone for 15 years, have never met them. My dad, I was talking to him on the phone the other day, and he's probably lived in this same house for like 12 or 15 years. I don't remember exactly. And someone asked him, have you ever walked around your block? And he had to pause. He hasn't. Never. He's lived there at least a dozen years. He's never taken a walk around his block. And that's telling of, our culture, where we don't know our neighbors. We don't walk around the block. Kids don't play outside anymore. And somehow, oddly enough, we got cancel culture, and social media took it.
And just exacerbated it.
Yeah, it goes viral overnight.
And that's the difference now with social media, is the virality of it, right? I mean, something can reach hundreds of millions of people within seconds. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the case 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it took time for news to be shared, and it's wild when you can see, the notifications coming in on a tweet. I've had a few tweets that have gone semi-viral.
Yeah.
One of them was in 2016. It was on election night. I was in Chicago, and obviously a lot of people thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win. Mm-hmm. And when it was going back and forth, some people were calling Trump was going to win. Some people were calling Hillary. My alma mater, Baylor, had been embroiled in a scandal. And so they had, in 2015, sent out a press release on Super Bowl Sunday. Just so stupid.
Yeah.
They were trying to hide it, And so I tweeted out, maybe this is a good time for Baylor to release another statement to the press. And then all of these people started, I had my phone down, and then I just see it like popping up with notifications. Yeah. So that went viral, but it wasn't, anything negative. But
speaking of universities.
Yeah.
And cancel culture, a lot of these universities are hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
You mentioned this country isn't that old. And, some of those folks, some of those founders, some of those folks that were influential don't necessarily still hold the same, they didn't meet the values and the standards of that institution, as they stand today.
We see that too, even in cities with, here in the South, right, with Civil War statues that commemorate Confederate soldiers. Right.
So, give those folks a Wikipedia page and a page in the World Book, so you can look them up. Statue, probably not necessary.
You look at Baylor, for example. They put a statue up of Robert Griffin III after he won a Heisman. A lot of people at the same time said that they should put a statue up of Art Briles, the head coach. This is 2013, 2014 when they built the stadium. Mm-hmm. Art Briles was fired in 2016 for allegedly covering up a sexual assault scandal.
Whoa.
We've got to really be careful when it comes to who we idolize and why.
Yeah.
We only know so little from these people. And statues can be permanent sometimes, right? Sometimes you can move them, sometimes you can tear them down. But I do think that's an interesting conversation, because, if it doesn't reflect the values of your institution, maybe in the 1800s it did. And maybe in 2021 you realize, all right, maybe this wasn't the best approach for us to have these beliefs.
Yeah.
100, 150, 200 years ago.
Let's go ahead and take that statue down.
What harm is it going to do?
Put it in a museum.
Yeah.
You know?
Give it to the family.
Yeah. Gift it to them. That's not the direction we want to go. And statues are typically of like heroes and people that we celebrate. Not something, that has all that hate and ignorance and fear associated with it.
I think at the end of the day, we should be careful.
Absolutely. Mindful.
We should maybe not jump and rush to conclusions when somebody does something stupid. Maybe ask yourself, why did they post this? Were they ignorant in the situation, or did they have malicious intent?
Or do we just ignore them?
That can be an answer too.
Right? Isn't that hurtful when someone ignores you?
It's one of the things that frustrates me on message boards, for example, like a Reddit or a sports message board. You've got so many people that are living in anonymity, right?
Oh, wow, yeah.
They're just hiding, and they can put those inflammatory comments out there.
Keyboard warriors.
There's no accountability. I'm on the belief, on the other hand, that there shouldn't be any internet anonymity. I can't say that word.
It's a funky word.
It is, especially when you say it multiple times in a few minutes.
Yeah.
I think that every account needs to be verified, right? Like on Reddit, my handle is @astaton.
Uh-oh.
On the Baylor message board,
give them a follow.
My handle is @astaton. On Twitter, it's @astaton.
Yeah.
I've always had the belief that like some people are like, people can try to find where you work or information. It's like, you can Google that.
Yeah.
You can look on LinkedIn. It's like, I've always had the mindset of owning your accountability, right? And if
not being a coward.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? That's basically what you said.
I mean, the only, I think, inflammatory comments that I might make are geared towards like the New York Yankees or something like that. But I don't know, just be smart on social media. And I think that would really do our culture some good if people couldn't hide behind their computer screens.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I also think, just being able to drive dialogue, and even if you debate, okay, fine. But, these are words. We're going to use our words to win this argument, or I'm going to present as much evidence as I can towards winning this argument. And you can't win them all. And now you can't go into personal attacks. Actually, you can, but that's when, the bigger person should just remove themselves. They should just opt out of that one before they escalate. So I agree with you. Accountability.
So what's your takeaway on cancel culture?
Stop canceling comedians. The shit is supposed to be funny. It's supposed to touch you and move you in a way that, is like, well, it's a little taboo. You give it a little bit of a side eye. And if it made you laugh, ask yourself why it made you laugh. Seek out that self-awareness. Know thyself.
Dave Chappelle has a segment or a sketch on this. I believe it's 2019. I think you can find it on Netflix. We would play the whole thing, but we'd probably get sued by Netflix. So check that out. My takeaway is have conversations. Don't be afraid to have conversations. Don't jump to conclusions. Maybe take the time before pressing send. Somebody said this the other day, and I liked what they said. They said, maybe on Twitter, if you're retweeting something, it should give you a timer and say, if you still want to tweet this in 6 hours, it's okay. And I was like, well, look, that totally takes away from the time of everything, the timing, the speed. But I like that concept.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like,
think before you tweet.
Think before you tweet, twerk. I don't know. If you're about to hit send on an angry email, save it in the drafts.
Yeah.
Go look at it the next day. It's the same thing in life. So I don't know. We want to encourage open dialogue.
Absolutely.
We want people to have different ideas.
Even if they are absolutely ridiculous. Like, if you want to be a racist.
Don't be a racist.
I say don't be a racist, but this is a free country and you are free to be a racist.
But know that even though it is a free country, actions do have consequences.
That's right. There's no right or wrong, baby. There's consequences. So you gotta own all of it.
Own the consequences to your actions.
If that juice is worth the squeeze, knock yourself out.
Yeah. It reminds me of a movie. Was it The Girl Next Door from 04, 05, something like that? But yeah, have conversation, listen to people. I think that's the most important thing. And as my mom told me when I was a little kid, you know, God gave you one mouth and two ears for a reason. Listen.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's my takeaway.
I'm good with it.
That was a colorful episode.
It was literally a colorful episode, and I hope we get some feedback on this one. I would like to, maybe follow up, and if possible, if we get some traction on it, we'll follow up. If not, we'll keep moving.
Yeah, and if you do want to leave us feedback and you don't feel comfortable,
you can't be anonymous. We'll find you.
I was going to say, if you don't feel comfortable leaving it on social media, but you want to let DeRae and I know what you think, just shoot us a DM. Send us a message, email. We'll respond back. It doesn't necessarily have to be on a public platform, so it's whatever you're comfortable with. But if you want to follow our work, just go to cautiouscoffee.com. All of the links to subscribe on Patreon are there. To buy merch, they're there. So if you want to get a colorful t-shirt like what we've got, or if you want to get a coffee mug when you're listening to this episode, all of that information's there. And of course, you can find us on all the social media channels at Cautious Coffee. But DeRae, it's been a lot of fun. Episode 8 of Cautious Coffee. Send us home.
Tagged and bagged. Until next time.
See ya.